By the mid-90s, the Smashing Pumpkins were one of the most popular rock bands in the world. First bursting onto the scene in 1991 with their debut album Gish, they built a bigger following with their follow-up release, 1993's Siamese Dream. In 1994, the band headlined Lollapalooza, and the following year they released their epic 2-disc CD, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. The band was riding high and living the dream, at least according to many outsiders, but that wasn't the case. During the band's tour in 1996 to support their third release, drummer Jimmy Chamberlin and keyboardist Jonathan Melvoin were dabbling in drugs, resulting in deadly consequences. That's what we're going to discuss in today's video. Jimmy Chamberlin's days with the band dated back to their early years when they were made up of frontman Billy Corgan, guitarist James Iha, and bassist Darcy Retzky. Up until this point, the trio were playing live shows using a drum machine, and Chamberlin would express his interest in joining the band, telling Modern Drummer magazine in 1994, "So I went out and saw the band, Billy, James, and Darcy playing at the Avalon with a drum machine. Man, did they sound horrible. They were atrocious. But the thing I noticed was that not only were the song structures good, but Billy's voice had a lot of drive to it, like he was dying to succeed. So I ended up driving from work every Wednesday to rehearse with them," he'd recall. Corgan would recall how he didn't think Chamberlin was initially a good fit for the group, saying that he was wearing a pink t-shirt, he had stonewashed jeans, had a mullet haircut, was driving a 280Z, and had yellow drums, recalling, "We were sort of looking at each other in the eye thinking, this ain't gonna happen, this is not the guy." But he'd learned all our songs, as only Jimmy can, off the top of his head, and within one practice we were ready to play. It was amazing. We just knew right away, he's that good. Chamberlin would join the band on their debut album Gish, but by the time the band began work on their second album Siamese Dream, Corgan felt the band was on the verge of breaking up. According to Details magazine, who interviewed the group in 1993, Corgan's decision to air the band's dirty laundry in public created a lot of resentment within the group. In the article, Corgan was quoted as saying, "I hated all my friends, I hated myself, I hated the band." Corgan would enter therapy, which forced him to talk more openly about his emotions, write songs about them, and become more honest, sometimes to the detriment of his bandmates. He soon started talking about the Smashing Pumpkins' internal problems, how James Iha and Darcy Retzky dated but broke up, and drummer Jimmy Chamberlin's drug addiction. He would tell the same publication, the idea that the stance was to tell the story and force it into the open. But the interviewer would follow up asking Corgan, did it have the intended consequences? To which he responded, no. In fact, I think it killed the band. When it came time to record the group's second album, in order to keep production costs low, Corgan relocated the band to Georgia, but there was another reason for going there: Chamberlin's debilitating drug addiction. Rolling Stone would report in 1993, and I quote, "Aside from the lower production costs, they chose to record in Atlanta on the theory that Chamberlin would have a hard time attracting his usual coterie of hardcore partiers there. The theory was wrong. Buckling under the pressure, Chamberlin would show up sometimes too wasted to play, and once disappeared for 5 days. Corgan laid down the law, either shape up or ship out. Chamberlin shaped up in a rehab clinic. It worked," Rolling Stone would write. Jonathan Melvoin was a later arrival to the band, first joining them in late 1995 as a touring keyboardist. He had an impressive resume up until that point in his career, playing with musician Prince and performing in a number of punk bands including the Dickies. Melvoin was exposed to music at a young age, coming from a pretty musical family. His father played piano in the 80s era group Wrecking Crew, and most famously played with Tom Waits, Frank Sinatra, and John Lennon. He had twin sisters who would also play with Prince. The tour to support the band's third album was especially difficult for Chamberlin, whose father passed away while the band was on the road. It was thought that this upsetting event may have played some part in having the drummer go back to his old ways and taking Melvoin with him. In fact, Melvoin's sister would tell Rolling Stone magazine that her brother was not an addict before the tour, recalling, "The only thing I can speculate is that somehow, someway, Jonathan developed this incredible Jones with Jimmy on this tour." Corgan, for his part, would admit to MTV in the fall of 1996 that he and the band believed that Chamberlin's drug use was not that serious, revealing, "We were really under the impression that he was having his little kind of weekend warrior blowouts, but that was basically under control. We were being made to believe that we were being made to believe, that we were being told the truth every step of the way, which we later found out wasn't true at all." There were several warning signs of what was coming on this tour. In January of 1996, the Smashing Pumpkins were touring Asia, starting in Osaka, Japan on January 19th. 10 days later, at the band's show in Bangkok, Thailand, there was an incident that Corgan would allude to, according to StarLA.org. Corgan would recall, "Jonathan was fine, but Jimmy was definitely out of it. The Smashing Pumpkins leader would warn Melvoin that if he had another slip-up on tour, he'd be fired." Fast forward 2 months later to March of the same year, and the Smashing Pumpkins had to postpone several shows in New Zealand and Australia following the death of Chamberlin's father. Those dates would be postponed to May of the same year. In early May, the band was in Lisbon, Portugal on their European tour when the second drug incident happened. Jimmy and Jonathan would be found unresponsive outside of their hotel and rushed to a local hospital. Corgan would recall what happened, according to StarLA.org: adrenaline shots to the heart, the whole Pulp Fiction bit. The band for their part would fire Melvoin but tell him he wouldn't leave the band until they were finished their European tour, since they didn't have a stand-in. The band was successful at keeping the news under the radar and even offered to postpone subsequent dates so Chamberlain could get help, but he claimed he was fine. Corgan would recall to MTV, "We had a long comical talk where they told us, no, it will never happen again, and we were really sorry. We realized we were destroying our lives here. Jonathan is like, I have a baby and a wife and responsibilities. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Jimmy is like, yeah, I have so much to lose and we're really sorry." About a week later, tragedy would strike during the band's show in Dublin, Ireland. During the band's performance of Bullet with Butterfly Wings, a 17-year-old teenager in attendance named Bernadette O'Brien was crushed in the crowd, suffering internal injuries and succumbing to them in the hospital. The band, horrified at the news, put out a statement sharing their thoughts and sent flowers to her funeral. The band's planned show in Belfast would be cancelled following the incident. Following their European tour, the band opted not to fire Melvoin, as Corgan liked him too much and thought he deserved another chance. In early July, it was reported that the Smashing Pumpkins would be filming their own version of MTV Unplugged in their hometown of Chicago with the city's symphony orchestra later that month. But then tragedy struck on July 12th when the band was in New York City to play Madison Square Garden, a huge feat that most bands would never experience. Ahead of their show at the Garden, both Chamberlain and Melvoin were staying in a different hotel than the rest of the band, the Regency in Manhattan. MTV News would report that the pair would return to the hotel and head to Melvoin's room at around 11 p.m. at night. It was believed that Melvoin overdosed due to a lethal combination of drugs and alcohol in the early hours of the morning the next day. Chamberlain passed out, and when he woke up, he discovered that Melvoin was unresponsive and called 911, but it was too late. Melvoin would pass away at the age of 34, and Corgan would be notified of what happened by the band's touring manager, and soon enough Darcy, James, and Billy would be taken to the 19th Precinct police station and questioned by the police before being released. 3 days after his passing, a funeral would be held for Melvoin, which saw none of the surviving members of the Smashing Pumpkins invited. Chamberlain, for his part, would be arrested for criminal possession of a controlled substance, and 5 days after the death of Melvoin, the band would announce that Chamberlain was out of the group, releasing a statement that read, "We decided to sever our relationship with our friend and drummer Jimmy Chamberlain." The group's tour wouldn't resume until August, while they searched for a new drummer and keyboardist. The band would eventually land on Dennis Flemoyne of the Frogs, who was going to fill in as a touring keyboardist for the band, while Filter drummer Matt Walker would fill in for Chamberlain. Corgan defended the band's decision to fire the drummer, saying, "We fired the guy to save his life. We could not continue thinking, maybe he'll get better. We were criticized for being intolerant and not helping Jimmy when he needed us most. Believe me, the guy couldn't have had any more chances. He used up all his chances plus 5. For everyone's safety and mental health stability, we had to part company," he'd say. Ahead of the MTV VMAs in 1996, an award show that saw the Pumpkins win 7 awards, surviving members talked openly about their struggles with Melvoin and Chamberlain, with Corgan telling the network, "We faced the boogeyman, and you know what? It's fine. We're totally fine. The band sounds great, and we are going to go on tour. And you know what? It's not going to be sad. It's going to be exactly the opposite. We're going to go out and have a good time." Following Melvoin's death, tributes would pour in. Canadian singer-songwriter Sarah McLachlan would pen the hit song Angel the following year after reading about Melvoin's death in Rolling Stone magazine. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. We'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Story sticker.